Guys, we're just going to go over a few of the extinguishers you have in the labs. And then when you come outside to me, you'll be able to use the fire extinguisher. You'll just be firing off the extinguisher. Remember, the fire extinguisher, guys, prevents the fire from getting bigger. So if the room was on fire, the fire extinguisher is going to be no good to you. And remember, in a fire situation like that is that you raise the alarm at least first before you inspect the fire. In other words, if there's a fire, you raise the alarm. Don't go straight to the fire and try to use a fire extinguisher straight away. Always raise the alarm. You have 3 different types of fire extinguishers. Predominantly, the main ones would be the powder and the CO2. Okay, you'll have a powder. Most of the labs working above in the main corridor will be a powder and a CO2. There is 1 or 2 labs that have a foam in there as well, but it's mainly powder and CO2. The powder one, remember guys, the fire extinguisher, everybody knows, you just come out of school or you just know about the fire triangle, how we start a fire. In other words, you have fuel, oxygen and heat source. So something to burn. What extinguisher does, it removes one of more of the components. That's basically it. So with the powder, guys, it covers all the risks we just talked about. And it covers everything we talk about in the lab. Wood, paper, textiles, flammable liquids. Now, you don't have to learn what I'm telling you here. It's written on the extinguisher and it's all written on the sign. The sign above it will say the same thing in the lab. Okay, we're not going to get bogged down here, go bear an hour trying to show every extinguisher, but it's just a short talk on them. So the powder covers all the risks. It's messy, so think of that. It can affect visibility. But in a situation like that in the lab area, it's probably the best one to use. In every lab, you'll see them. Most of the next one you have there is a CO2 or carbon dioxide. It's color-coded black. In other words, all the extinguishers are red, and on this one is a blue color-coded powder. Just read it when you get up there and say, oh yeah, what did he say about that? Covers all the risks. The same with the CO2. It's got a color code black. It's written on the sign. It's mainly for electrical fires and flammable liquids. It's clean, hard and fast. So if it's an electrical fire, anything like that, the CO2 is probably the best one because it doesn't create a mess. It's very effective. You also have a foam, color-coded cream. Again, it fires the same way as the powder. It's just, like I said, a foam, and it covers flammable liquids, wood, paper, textiles. But as I said, you wouldn't have a lot of foams in there. You're probably 2 of them in certain labs, which with the powder and the CO2. So these are the ones inside there. Guys, when you're firing an extinguisher, it's straightforward. You'll have a pin situation like that with a plastic seal. Most of the extinguishers are in, even if you walk out there, are in exit areas. In other words, you're coming away from a fire to get a fire extinguisher. So your back is to the exit when you're fighting the fire. The extinguisher's on the wall, you have a plastic seal, remove the pin, it's like a big aerosol can. Once you press that nib down, it releases pressure, and this situation pushes the CO2 onto the fire. To prevent that happening, like I said, there's a pin in there, like that. You can't press it down. And that's why it's a plastic seal, it's easy to get out. Now when you have the fire extinguisher, you remove the pin, always know the risks. You'll know more than I what the risks are in the lab. You know what you're dealing with. I just see flammable liquids or something like that, electrical, that's all I see in a risk. So in my situation, I would be using the fire extinguisher and I would know what to use. Okay, once you use the fire extinguisher, you know what the risk is, use the right fire extinguisher. Test the fire extinguisher. Always test, like any mechanical thing, it looks foolproof, it might be ready to go. Always test the fire extinguisher on the ground and empty the fire extinguisher. So when you press it, you empty it like that, right all the way through. You'll probably get 11 seconds to 12 seconds out of this extinguisher. You'll probably get 16, 17, maybe 18 seconds out of this one. But that's all you need in the event of a fire. Because you've raised the alarm, you're trying to put the fire up, it's not going up, but then you're evacuating as well. Okay, fire extinguishers, guys, are not door stops. We find a lot of times when I'm checking them here, the pins are removed and because they're used as door stops. Leave them where they are. The only time you take a fire extinguisher off a wall, off it's where it's located, is for an emergency situation, not for anything else. Okay, remember that now, guys. Right, the next one we have inside there, and also again, it's about awareness. Read the extinguisher, read what's on there, read the signs. The next one we have is, you'll have a blanket in there. Very good with the fire equipment. Every lab has got a blanket. It'll be on the wall, it'll be straps like that. You pull the straps, out comes the blanket, down like that. Okay? Technically, they say when you get a blanket, it's the handlebars of a bike. You just put your thumbs inside and twist in around there. Common sense says you're not going to approach a fire with your hands sticking out there. So if you can't do the technical right way, as long as your hands are behind there. You put the blanket like that over the fire and leave it there. Remember the fire triangle. Flame has died down. If we turned off gas, you turned off electricity, you've turned off the fuel. But once the heat source, do not pull back the blanket straight away. Just because the flame is down doesn't mean the fire is dead. Leave it there. Evacuation is in place. You evacuate. You go to your instructor or go to the relevant person and say, look, I've put what you said, put the fire blanket on it, turned off the gas. They'll inspect it. You will go to your assembly point or your safe area. It's a very good bit of fire equipment as well. If you go on fire, the best thing to do is they call it stop, drop and roll. Or if a person goes on fire, you put them on the ground. It doesn't matter which side of the blanket you use. Your hands will be protected. You can wrap them in it or you can douse them in this. Once you use a blanket, we're working off 100% in health and safety, trying to get as close as we can. You have to bin it. So no matter if it's a small burn, it doesn't matter. It might work, but we can't work on might. So just report it. Look, we've used the blanket there. There was a bit of a flame, it's burnt. It will be replaced. But don't try and put it back in the box and say, well, that's grand. Oh, we're going to use a small bit. But it's a very good bit of fire equipment to get at home or anything like that. If you're like me, you can see there, I did 2 of these yesterday, demonstrations. I'm not a great folder, but what I had inside there, the straps were hanging down. So if you happen to take it out and you don't use it, or if it falls out or something happens to it and you put it back in, make sure the straps are hanging down there. You don't want to be trying to get it out and trying to put your hand in. It'll just pull down, it releases very good. But it's a good bit of fire equipment. So when you come outside, guys, you'll be using mostly CO2 and a few foams. You know, CO2, carbon dioxide. You'd probably have a bigger one than this. It'll come out noisier. So what we're going to do is probably have 3 of them lined up. Don't come out, don't mess, don't start firing them all over the place because we're going to have a group coming out. Line it up. You may as well get a feel to learn how to use a fire extinguisher because there may as well be a pot plant in the corner. It's good to know how to use one. The fire is the thing, as you know, is what you got to respect. The extinguisher are easy to use. It's the right extinguisher, using the right extinguisher in the right place. If you use the wrong extinguisher in the wrong place, it can do you quite damaging. But when we go outside, we'll use the fire extinguishers. There'll be 3 of you lined up. We'll use them. Just fire them off, and move along straight away because it creates less confusion then. You know, because we've had people before mess around with it and someone's got foam all over them or CO2 and things like that. You know, it's irresponsible because the extinguisher there. But remember, guys, you only use a fire extinguisher. It's raise the alarm. If you're not confident, it's good to know you use a fire extinguisher. If you're not confident using a fire extinguisher, you're already on the way out. Your evacuation is the big thing. The main thing is raise the alarm, inspect second. Okay, and when we come outside, we'll use the fire extinguisher. And best of luck this year. Thank you very much, okay? Thank you.